Hi, my name is Deborah Tilson Clark, and I'm an author with Human Error Publishing. And we have time to share with you some of our work today. I'm going to read a little bit from a story in my first book called Friend, Foe, or Family. And the story's title is Betty and the Chicken Come Home. When Betty Louise Reeves moved back to Highlands County after living in the greater metropolitan area of Baltimore for 35 years, there were two things she refused to leave behind. One was her 1991 Lincoln Town Car, even though she figured it would stand out like a sore thumb among all the mud-spattered pickups and compact cars belonging to the cousins back home. And the other was her gynecologist. She was not about to let some strange man get interested in her private parts at this stage of her life, doctor or civilian. So once a year, she made the trip to Baltimore to Dr. Kahn's office and had her pap smear and mammogram, and nobody back home got a peek or a hint. That's how she happened to be driving north on I-95 halfway between the Capital Beltway and the Baltimore Beltway at 9:46 a.m. on Monday, November 16th. She was on her way to her annual appointment, and somehow she got stuck behind a tractor-trailer rig full of chickens. The chickens were jammed together in cages stacked 4 or 5 high, and little white feathers were continually blasted off the ill-fated birds onto Betty's windshield, where they slid up the tinted glass like dry, elongated snowflakes. "Drat," Betty said as she checked for the umpteenth time to see if she could safely pull onto the left-hand lane and get around the truck. There was a solid line of traffic as far as she could see in the little convex mirror, and the green Volvo station wagon that had kept her pinned in for 15 minutes was still 6 feet from the town car's back door handle. She was fed up with the feathers and the traffic and the truck fumes, which she could still smell inside her Lincoln, even with the air conditioning going, when suddenly she heard and felt a heavy thump, and there, instead of little wispy feathers on her windshield, was an entire chicken body. It lay pressed against the slanting glass on the passenger side for only a few seconds before it flipped off onto the grill of the Volvo. Betty kept the Lincoln firmly under control while flicking her eyes at her side mirror to see what would happen next, and she felt a momentary tingle of satisfaction as the bird hit and the driver of the Volvo nearly lost control in a nova of white feathers. Betty would have known to expect that blast of feathers. She had been born and raised in the country after all, and in her day had seen more than one chicken run over. They always exploded like that. It was just went into 50 million pieces. There was nothing for a driver to do but just keep going. The worst thing was, if there was anything much of a carcass left in the road, all the chickens would come running to check it out, and before you knew it, another car would come along and another old hen would meet her maker in a burst of glory. But even Betty was taken aback when another bird landed on her windshield. It thudded against the glass with one round golden eye precisely in line with Betty's own. The chicken lay spread-eagled slightly above the speedometer, mere inches from Betty's hands on the steering wheel, and glared at Betty for a full 15 seconds before it blinked and tried to lift its head. Betty's hands flew off the steering wheel, but driving skills honed by years of taking 3 sons to football practice in urban Baltimore were still in place, so she grabbed it back immediately. The heavy Lincoln stayed straight and true, but Betty couldn't see a thing but bird, so she hit the brakes, realized instantly that was a mistake, stepped on the gas, heard a horn blast from behind the car, and involuntarily let her hands wobble slightly on the wheel. The car obediently followed her guidance and swayed from side to side in the lane. The car behind Betty honked again, and yet again, while the chicken tried to dig its claws into the windshield as it slid 6 inches to the left and 6 inches to the right. Now, nearly panicked, Betty smacked the little button that turned on her hazard lights and then pressed the turn signal lever to indicate a right turn and began to gradually slow. She pulled onto the shoulder of the road, barely missing a hunk of retread rubber that lay like a barricade between Betty and the shoulder's out-of-traffic safety. And finally, she stopped the car. The chicken slid down the windshield, lay on its feet, clutching the wiper blade, wings outstretched, beak open, gasping. Betty was breathing hard, too. She took a few minutes to collect herself and then glanced in the mirror to check on her hair, which was still in good shape. She took a deep breath and held it for a second to help slow down her heart. She thought that if that little blonde nurse in Dr. Kahn's office took her blood pressure right then, she'd have put her on medication so fast it'd make her head spin. But she was all right. Thank God she hadn't wrecked, and thank goodness she always left plenty of time to get to her appointments. You never know when an emergency will come up. She looked at the cause of her near wreck. The chicken was still on her windshield, still breathing hard, but holding up its head and looking around, even if in a slightly dazed manner. The bird's hairdo hadn't held up as well as Betty's. The feathers were all ruffled, and there were obvious gaps where feathers had been blown away, and pale, pimply skin showed. The bird's chest was heaving. "I bet your blood pressure is a little elevated right now, too," Betty said out loud. She took a deep breath, blew out hard, and muttered, "Lord." After another minute, Betty brushed her shoulders and chest for stray hairs and potential lint, put the Lincoln in drive, and said, "Okay, chicken, the free ride is over. I've got places to go, so you take off."